Recently, I had the pleasure of meeting Josh Redman, a musician, photographer, and event organizer. Of course, I immediately asked Josh if I could take his picture, which is what I do to most everyone I meet, and he kindly agreed. I recognized in Josh a fellow restless spirit, someone who explores many avenues of creativity, who can't help but make things, all kinds of things. You should definitely check out Josh's website, which I've linked below. When I asked about potential locations, Josh suggested Third Space Art Collective, where he's the events director. The day before the shoot, I walked through the space with a camera and imagined compositions. Visually, Third Space is a great location. It's a collection of partially open studio spaces, with lots of little nooks and corners. Everywhere you look, there are different colors and textures, and you know I'm going to take advantage of these beautiful diffused skylights. For the first couple of compositions, I was drawn to this loft space. I initially thought about facing this direction, with the skylight as my key light, but ultimately decided on the opposite perspective, with a flash as my key, and the skylight illuminating the background, and potentially providing a bit of separation as well. For these shots, I wanted the distant background to fall almost completely to black, both to provide subject separation and to enhance a sense of front-to-back depth. So I metered my key light from my target aperture of f5.6, then metered the background for f4 and adjusted my shutter speed accordingly. In other words, I underexposed the background by a stop. I'm using Portra 400, which is notoriously unforgiving of underexposure. So to make sure that I placed the overall exposure sufficiently above the toe, I rated the film at EI 250. That little bit of extra density helps me to set the black point to a nice rich black without increasing the contrast excessively. This one's my favorite from this first set. I love how serene and unbothered Josh looks in the middle of all this clutter. For the next couple shots, we moved downstairs near the front door. Josh mentioned that when Third Space hosts events, he's always there at the door to welcome people, and that this composition would feel familiar to anyone who's attended an event. Whenever you're working with doorway light and a standing subject, it's important to be aware that most of the light will be hitting the subject's face from below. This is definitely not traditional portrait lighting, and it can end up looking grotesque if you're not intentional about it. But if your composition helps the viewer understand that your subject is standing in front of an open door, it can actually look pretty natural. For this next shot, I added some flash as a kicker. My idea was to mimic and amplify the skylight, outlining the subject and adding a bit of shine to the right side of his face. Here you can see one of the potential issues with using strong light from below. Some of that light is bouncing off the brim of Josh's hat and casting a pinkish glow on parts of his face. This is one of those things that bugs you if you stare at it for long enough, but I think that taken in context, it's probably fine. I did end up doing just a little bit of correction to the pink skin tones, though. For the last few shots, we went back up to the loft, where I was drawn to this thick red fabric draped over the corner. Here I decided to use natural light only. This was a bit challenging. The light was changing constantly as the wind shifted a large tree branch above the skylight, which you can clearly see in this footage. When the light was at its best, my shutter speed was 1/8 of a second at f2.8. I could potentially have slowed my shutter to 1/4 of a second to handle the darker moments, and let the film's overexposure latitude take care of the full light. But I knew that the colors wouldn't look as nice with the tree branch filtering the light to a bluish green, even if the exposure was correct. So I just tried my best to catch the light as it appeared. I love how the colors of Josh's hat and hoodie echo the fabric and background. That touch of color harmony helps give this otherwise simple photo a little more depth and interest. And that's the end of the roll. I had a lot of fun working with Josh on these pictures. If you're ever in Davis, California, go check out an art show or concert at Third Space. I've included a link to their website in the description. And if you do visit, make sure to say hi to Josh.